One of these iced coffees cost me $5 and one of them cost me $1.50. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make an iced coffee substitute at home so that you can replace this $5 cup of coffee, instead making it for less than $1.50. So just a quick caveat before we get going. The Starbucks Frappuccino, it does include xanthic gum in their original recipe. And what that does is it's a thickening agent that makes it a little bit more, not syrupy, but a little thicker, like milkshakier than what a normal iced coffee would be. We're not going to use that xanthic gum. It's not something that I particularly care for, but you can add it if you would like to. This recipe is not going to include it, but you can add it later. It's a little bit expensive for you to buy off the shelf. So we're just going to avoid doing that and just use a regular iced coffee recipe. Now in this video, I'm going to show you two different ways to make iced coffee. The key thing though to keep in mind when you're making iced coffee is that you don't want to water down the coffee. So you don't want to add ice to a hot beverage and cool it down, right? Because by doing that, you're going to throw off the ratio of coffee to water, right? That we work so hard for. So typically when we're talking about a drip coffee, like out of your coffee maker, or like a pour over, we're talking about 1 part coffee to 15 to 17 parts water, right? If we add ice to that after we already make it, then we can throw it off. So there's a couple of different things that we can do to avoid this. One is we can take brewed coffee and put it in the refrigerator and cool it down that way so that you're not introducing additional water to it in the form of ice. Another way we can do that is that we can split the recipe so that you only use half the amount of water and pour it over ice that way so that the melted ice doesn't add extra water to that ratio. And so we'll go through both of those methods here in a minute. Now the first method that we're going to talk about to make iced coffee is brewing coffee and then chilling it in a refrigerator. And to be transparent, this is the method that I use the most. So when I make coffee in the morning, I tend to make too much between what my wife and I can consume before it gets cool. And so what I do is I take the excess of that coffee. So I ration out in the morning after I make the coffee that we're going to drink. And then I immediately put in the balance of that coffee into the refrigerator to let it cool. The key thing to remember here is don't leave it on the burner and then put it in the refrigerator, because being on the burner, you're going to get some of those burnt flavor notes that is going to translate into the final drink. So we want to remove it from the burner as quickly as possible. Now here on the table in front of us, I have a couple of different things. And so the first thing is coffee that I made this morning that I made extra of, and I've put that into this mason jar. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to add our ingredients. It's pretty straightforward. I have some whole milk, some Torani caramel flavored syrup, because the Frappuccino that I selected was a caramel flavored one. And then I also had just some regular simple syrup. This one is also by Torani. You can make your own if you want to. What this does is it just sweetens it up a little bit more to match what the Frappuccino's flavor profile is without adding too much of that caramel flavor. And all we're going to do is we have the 16 ounces of coffee that was left over from this morning. I'm going to add about 6 ounces of milk. Now you can do this to taste. I like a little bit stronger coffee flavor when I'm drinking iced coffee, so I use a little bit less milk, but you can add a little bit more. But right now we're going to start with 6 ounces of milk, and then to that we're going to add the syrups to taste. Now again, from the store, this Frappuccino is pretty sweet. I don't like my coffee as sweet. So when I was playing around with this recipe, I was doing about 2 pumps of the caramel syrup and about 2 pumps of the cane sugar for every 12-ounce beverage. So for this 24-ounce mason jar full of coffee and milk, I would have used 4 pumps of caramel and 4 pumps of the simple syrup. And 4 pumps is equal to about 1 ounce of liquid coming out. These are 1/4 ounce pumps. And now once we have all the ingredients together, all we have to do is shake them up and pour them into our glass. And I understand that I did a very poor job of pouring them in, even though I tried to use a funnel. So I apologize for that, but it did the job, and we've got our finished beverage. And now looking at them, you can tell which one I made maybe a little bit better, since I told you that I like a little less milk in my drinks than how they originally came. So this one is the one that I just made, and this one is the one that I bought from the store. But they are very similar. The only other difference is the thickness. This one is a little bit thinner because it doesn't have that xanthic gum in it, and this one is a little bit thicker just overall. But Really pretty similar products here. And I'm sure that you're going to be happy with this if you're used to drinking something like this. I'm sure that you're going to be happy with this and save the $3.50 every day. It's really easy. It's something that you can just make up in the morning as you go along. Take the rest of that coffee out of that pot, put it in the refrigerator, and you have your drink for the next morning. This is going to store in the refrigerator for a couple of days. I wouldn't recommend doing it for over 5 to 7 days maximum in the refrigerator because it's going to start to sour after time. So you want to make sure that you consume it. But even still, you know, if you do this every morning, you'll have your drink for the next morning ready for you, ready to go, and save that $3.50 or more if you're going out to Starbucks and getting a drink or something like that. So that's option number one. Option number two, the back end of it's the same. We're gonna use the same amount of syrups, same amount of milk. The only difference is I'm gonna show you how to do it with the half water, half ice recipe instead of taking an already brewed coffee and putting it in the refrigerator. So we're going to use a pour over for this because it's easier to demonstrate exactly what I'm talking about in the principles. And all we're going to do is we're going to take the same amount of ground coffee that we would have used ordinarily anyway, and we are going to split the amount of water, 50% water and 50% ice. So you can use the same recipe that we did in our pour over video. I'll link to that up here. And you can take that 23 grams of coffee and that 350 grams of water. That's our 1:15 ratio. And you can split that 350 grams of water into 50% water and 50% ice. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our 175 grams of ice into the bottom of our Chemex, and we're going to take 175 grams of hot water and pour over top, just like we would in a normal Chemex. Everything else is the same. You're going to still let it bloom, you're going to still pour over, and you're still going to let it drain down. Now it will brew faster, of course. When we're talking about Chemex brew times, we're around the 3-minute and 30-second mark. So of course we're using half the water, so it could end up being a little more than half the time, so 2.5 minutes of total brew time instead of that 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And once that finishes brewing down and all the ice melts, you're right back into step one of the previous video where we have the coffee in the mason jar. Just follow the rest of that and you will still have a ready to drink iced coffee beverage. And that's it. That's really all there is to it. I understand the convenience factor of these. To me, they're a little bit too sweet. I don't particularly enjoy them, so I think this is a really great solution for me. So let me know what you think. Is it worth saving the $3.50 and doing the little bit of extra work to make it at home? Or are you still gonna go and reach for the convenience? Is it more novelty to have it in a glass jar? Because of course I just put this one in the same glass jar so that they would be a little bit harder to tell apart. So is it the drinking vessel? Is it, this is exactly what you want, the exact sweetness and the exact milk? Or is it just something that you would easily transition to this one? So let me know in the comments what you think. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you again soon.